All right, so we're just about done here. I want to go ahead and show you my render setup, and then we're going to jump in and begin compositing our final ocean. So I'm rendering three different kind of elements, if you will. I'm rendering the large ocean, I'm rendering the smaller ocean, which is up front over here that's more detailed, and I'm rendering a shot of the backdrop. Now, as I render these out, let me go ahead and show you my render settings. I'll go ahead and bring this over here. Under the Arnold tab, I'm using 5 on the camera, 3 on diffuse, 3 on glossy, and 3 on refraction. You can of course kick these up even higher. I don't need anything that's going to take too crazy long though, since this is still just really a test. However, that is what I'm going to be using here. Now, I do want to make sure I have the alpha channel on this ocean and this one here, and I need to be careful. If I have in my backdrop, and that's here under Arnold environment, if I have this AI physical sky, I'm not actually going to get an alpha channel behind there. It's going to be solid. So be sure that when you render this one and this one, that you go ahead and just break that connection. And again, this is going to be simple. I'm going to hide this one here and I'll render a sequence. And then I'll do vice versa, render the other one, render my sequence, and then I'll hide both, put my backdrop in, use my BG camera, which is right over here, and then I'll render just probably one still image of my backdrop. Now, I'm not rendering any individual passes for this one. We're just staying simple, but if you wanted to, you could easily come over here to the AOVs, go ahead and choose our AI standard shader, and then you could grab things like your diffuse, your specular, perhaps indirect diffuse and indirect specular, reflection. We probably don't have much of that, but refraction, maybe your refraction opacity, and you can just click over here and you can see it's going to generate a pass of each one of those for you as well. Again, I'm not going to do that for right now. We're going to stay a bit simpler, but you can see it is very easy to render those out. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video here. I'm going to go ahead and render out all of my passes. And when we come back, we're going to go ahead and jump into Nuke and take a look at starting to set up our composite. All right, so our renders are finished and we're here inside of Nuke, and I've already loaded those renders into Nuke. So we have over here our large ocean. This one took about 4-ish hours, maybe 4.5 hours to render. This one here, the more detailed ocean that's closer up, took a little bit less time because it takes up less space. This was about 3 hours. And this one over here took all but a couple of minutes to render because it really is just one frame. So let's take a quick look at our renders. Now, when you look at these, the motions themselves look really nice, but we already knew that. We did a bunch of play blasts. We knew we were going to like that. And the only thing you might look at here and think, well, that doesn't look too great, is the fact that it is very dark. But remember, we are kind of doing a little bit of a sunset, so it'll make a little bit more sense once that's there. And also the fact that the highlights are pretty blown out. Now, again, all of this could have been avoided. I could have rendered in individual passes. We put it all together, get exactly what we want. But since we are working in 32-bit images, all of the data is actually very manipulatable. So, for example, the color that we added into our diffuse, that greenish color, is actually here. You can see, I can actually bring that up. We got those kind of blues and greens in there, and we can actually get to all those colors. And we'll also be able to actually work with our highlights here. Now again, I specifically wanted my highlights blown out because I want to get the effect of kind of a glare or a specular bloom coming off of them, and we'll be able to do that here in Nuke with these areas that are blown out. Now, one other thing you might notice, and it's a little bit hard to see right now, but if you look at these two here, let me kind of just get them both into separate viewers, you'll see that the closer up one actually has a few more highlights, and that's because there are more details to pick up highlights. But on top of that, it's also a tiny, tiny bit brighter. Don't worry too much about that, but that is something we will have to address as we comp this together. So, for starters, let's go ahead and just throw all three pieces together just to see what we get. I'm going to go ahead and give myself a little bit more working room here. And let's go ahead and just get ourselves a couple of merge nodes in here. So we'll throw in a merge node, and I'll go ahead and merge my, let's say this ocean here, or excuse me, this background here. We'll merge that behind our ocean. We'll just kind of put that right there. There we go. So we have that. I don't quite like the position of the sun, so I'm going to have to move this, but at least they're merged together right now. And then I want to merge this one on top of our existing ocean, so I'll throw another merge node in there. we go. We'll merge this on top of that right there. And I don't need both of those anymore. We'll just connect the one over here. All right, and you'll be able to see that now we have in front here the more detailed ocean. And if I go ahead and disable over here, you could see that it is in fact more detailed. Now there is a bit of a dividing line we can see, but again, I'm not too worried about it. Number one, it's not really that visible. You could see, you really only know it's there when you're really looking for it. And second, we'll do a little bit of compositing to hide that transition. We'll blur it out a little bit. Now, I do want to go ahead and move that background though to get a better effect. Now, I didn't know exactly where my sun was supposed to be. I just kind of dropped it down and rendered out because it's going to be very easy to change this in Nuke. We're going to go ahead and add a transform node right over here. There we go. And we're going to be able to move this. So let's go ahead and give ourselves a little bit of space here. And I'm just going to go ahead and shift this up. I may actually do it over here so I don't accidentally move it too much. Oops, sorry. Right over here. Let's see. Might move it up a little bit more. Let's try 90 pixels, maybe 180 pixels. So there we go. That's starting to come up. Let's try maybe 220. And maybe a little bit more, 250. So that's starting to look pretty good. 270 maybe. And okay, I kind of like that. Maybe it's a little bit too intense. Maybe the sun should come up a bit higher. We'll try 350 maybe. And that makes a little bit more sense. Now the horizon is not really there right now. We do of course have this really kind of harsh edge here, but again, we'll address all of that. But for right now, let's just kind of do a quick preview and see what we have. Let's go ahead and hit play over here. And you know what? For a quick pass, just throwing a few things together, it doesn't look half bad. So there are several things we do want to correct. I want to come in here and first of all begin adjusting my color. I want to blend these two together a little bit nicer. And I want to add a little bit of depth of field in here. I want to make it feel like the ocean that's back here is actually receding into the distance. Perhaps it'll be a little bit blurry in the midground, even blurrier in the background, and therefore we won't be able to notice as much that there really isn't any true lack of infinite ocean here. At least kind of fool somebody initially. So let's go ahead and end this clip here, and in the next clip we'll go ahead and set up all of those effects.